If you'd like to support Men at the Movies and join our small community, go to buymeacoffee.com/Men at the Movies. You can get early access to videos, you get stickers, even some behind the scenes cuts like our pre-show conversations and stuff that hits the editing room floor. So if you'd like to be a part of our community, just visit buymeacoffee.com/Men at the Movies. Speaking of coffee, we have a new sponsor for the show, Confined Space Coffee. You can get 10% off your first order by using code MATM. So visit their website, check them out, and we appreciate their sponsorship and support for our show. Coming up on the Men at the Movies podcast, we talk about A Star is Born. Sarah and I debate whether this is a tragedy or a comedy, but basically we look at this as a process of how do we become a star. First, you have your calling. Everybody has a voice, that everybody has something to say, and God is inviting us to share it. The question becomes, will we step into the invitation when it comes, or will we stay backstage? In the final step of the process, we have an enemy that's against us, that's against our calling, that's against our purpose. The most important thing that we can do is just not quit. We all have a song to sing. So join us as we discuss God's truth in this movie.
The movies and stories we love are gateways to see ourselves and God in new ways.
Every great story borrows its power from a larger story, the story that's written on our hearts and woven into the fabric of our very being.
Hello and welcome to the Men at the Movies podcast. My name is Paul McDonald, and before we bring Sarah in, I just want to let you guys know, if you're listening to this podcast, we are going to have a really long clip in there because it is the most powerful moment of the movie for Sarah and I. So if you have the possibility, you want to go check it out on our YouTube channel. That's youtube.com/@Men at the Movies, because you'll want to see the clip in its entirety. And while you're there, go ahead and like, subscribe, do all the things, okay, because throughout, in between episodes that we release, we're going to show clips from the movie. The clips that we discuss, we're actually going to have little short videos focused on those clips, as well as little 30-second, 1 minute long blurbs from it. So those will be great to share, to try to invite people to come and subscribe and be a part of this little community of Men at the Movies. So with no further ado, Sarah, how are you doing today?
Well, tell me something, boy. Ain't you tired trying to fill that void?
Well done. There's no Star is Born t-shirt, no really fan merch for you to wear.
Not for this one.
No. And this is going to be a really interesting conversation, because typically Sarah's like, let's do Never Ending Story. Let's do The Last Unicorn. Let's do, mostly these sort of 80s movies that are fun, The Goonies. And so I said, Sarah, we're never doing The Last Unicorn. Sorry. You can do that on your own podcast when you create it.
So uncultured.
This is Men at the Movies. This is a man we're talking about.
Don't even get me started, man. You've done how many Disney movies on this thing? I don't want to hear it.
So, on the other end of the spectrum is A Star is Born. As I texted you while I was watching it, I was like, oh, I love this movie. And then about half an hour later, and I hate this movie. The first time I ever saw this, and I had no idea of the context. I was just like, oh, this, up for Best Picture. It's got Bradley Cooper, Lady Gaga. I was like, Sam Elliott, Dave Chappelle. It's got a lot of good names in it. And so if I remember correctly, I'm watching it on a plane, either going one way or the other, tour from Uganda. And it gets to the end. By the way, there are spoilers. So if you don't want the spoilers, go ahead and leave now. So when it gets to that point, when he pulls the truck out of the garage and he steps out and he's got the belt in his hand, I can neither confirm nor deny that I just start being like, No, 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 no. It's almost as bad an ending as watching Lone Survivor on a plane when they start showing the actual servicemen. The guy who was in the middle row regretted his decisions.
Well, it's funny because when you have me send you my notes for these podcasts, it's always the first question is always like, so why did you choose this movie? What do you love about this movie? And I'm like, okay, truthfully, I don't love this movie. This is one of those movies that I respect as an extremely well-made movie, and it's got a great soundtrack, and the acting is good. But man, it's a downer. It's a downer of a movie. It really, really is. And sometimes, I can do that. It's like, like Schindler's List. That's a great movie, but oh my god,
Yeah, it's heavy.
It's heavy, very intense. But I don't know, like when I had sent you a list a while back and you told me to get the freak out of the 80s, I was trying to think of other movies that, had said something to me that weren't from the 80s. And so I thought of this one, and I remembered that, that says some pretty powerful stuff. So maybe I'm sure we could find some things to talk about this. But yeah, I would have to say this is not one of my favorite movies, and it's not a movie that I love, as opposed to other movies that we've done, because usually I get on and I'm bouncing around going, oh my god, I love this movie,
pulling out all kinds of trivia.
yeah, I mean, I could still give you trivia about this one, but I just can't. I can't just be all like, oh, I love this movie. I'm like, yeah, no, it's a good movie, but I can't say I loved it, at least not like the others.
Well, when I recorded Napoleon with Morgan earlier this year, and we're talking about it, it was like, typically we don't enjoy tragedies. It's like, we like the redemption story, we like the transformation story. And so I tend to really dislike those movies, but there's something about this movie that captures my attention, my imagination. Something brings my heart alive, even as then it rings it out at the end. There's something just beautiful about this, about I think really in a lot of ways, the love between Jack and Allie.
That's the best part. It's the best part of the movie.
And and there's so much, and I think I texted you too, this is exquisitely crafted as a movie. If you go and watch it, and the first time you won't catch this, but because because I knew how it was going to end when I was watching it this time, when Jack's in the car after his first show, before he meets Allie, they're about to turn down the road and go to the bar where he ends up hearing her sing. And as they're turning out Jack's window, you see a billboard that's got nooses in it. I'm just like, that level of detail and nuance just is what makes this both exquisitely crafted. But then on the flip side, as we like to ask, what story are they trying to tell? It doesn't feel like a hopeless story.
Yes and no.
Right. So many tragedies feel hopeless at the end, but this doesn't have that same, as she's singing I'll Never Love Again, as they're showing the flashbacks, you're just wrecked.
Yeah. I could see yes and no. Like I said, it is a very tragic ending. Yeah. And thankfully they don't focus on it for very long. Like once that happens, the movie's pretty much over, and there is some hope because, Allie's there and, she's doing well and, and she loves her husband and stuff. So yeah, yes and no. It's hard. It's hard to nail it down, but, yeah, it is. It's kind of a downer of a movie.
Yeah. Well, So normally, Sarah, in our conversations, you're trying to convince me why this movie's a good movie or why that movie is a good movie. And I was like, oh, I hated this movie. And you've tended to at least convince me to not say it sucks. So I guess this time it's my turn to try and convince you otherwise.
Okay.
And we didn't come up with this pre-show, plan this out. I have no idea how this is going to go. But as you were talking, that idea came to me of the transformation of Allie. Because that's what we want to look at, whose characters transform and change throughout the course of the movie. I'm not sure Jack's really did, which is the tragic part. But in the creation, I mean, the creation of the star is born, right? That's the end of the movie. So this is a movie about the process of becoming a star. Which I'm like, no shit, Paul. It's
not just a clever name.
But so that's the approach we're going to take. That's the path we're going to take. And because one of the themes that come out quite frequently throughout the movie is they'll say this over and over, have something to say. You have something to say, you need to say it. And so we're going to start our first clip. We're just going to cut right in. And Jack and Allie have met. They go out to this cop bar. And it feels awkward because Jack's drinking. And you see it. She's sitting there watching him drink. You'll find out later she's got a alcoholic father at home, so she knows how to handle men who are drunk. She probably just thinks that he's looking for a after show roadie. And there's that kind of a standoffishness for a little while. And he's asking her, he's like, do you write your own music? And she says, because of the way she looks, because of her nose, they just look at her and say, you sound great, but you don't look like a rock star. You don't look like a musician. You don't look like a songwriter. And so she's been dismissed. So we're just going to go to this conversation they're having at the bar.
You're very lucky.
Oh, really? Yeah, not really. My nose has not made me lucky. I could have had it maybe a hit song if it wasn't for my nose.
That's fucking bullshit.
Yeah, no, it's not bullshit because, you go into these rooms and there's all these fucking men in there and they're just staring at you, listening to your record, going, oh, you sound great, but, you don't look so great.
I had a thing when I was little. I was born with this thing in my ear. Couldn't hear. What do I wind up being? A singer? So you never know. Look, talent comes everywhere. Everybody's talented. Everybody in this bar is talented in one thing or another, but having something to say and a way to say it so people listen to it, that's a whole other bag. And unless you get out there and you try to do it, you'll never know. That's just the truth. If there's one reason we're supposed to be here is to say something so people want to hear it. Don't you understand what I'm trying to tell you?
Yeah, I do. I don't like it, but I understand.
He's right about, talent, like everybody in the bar is talented about something, but it's about what you do, with that talent, and how, I'm sure we'll probably go into it again during the course of the podcast, but how as Christians, God's given all of us something to say, like he's given all of us, like a mission per se to get the
mission
word
from God?
out.
Is that what you're trying to say?
Mission from God. That's right. Mission from God. He's given us, every single one of us has something unique to say, because what we want to share about God is reflective of our own walk with God and what we've learned from him and what he's told us, and our own particular testimony that we have to share. So like what I have to say is going to be different from what you have to say, and sometimes it might overlap, but that's the beauty of it, because it's just such a wonderful personal thing to have your own special message that you want to share with the world. And I think God loves it when we do that. And then of course the enemy is going to try to stifle that, because he doesn't want your message to get out, for sure. So he's going to throw anything that he can in your way, whether it's people telling you that you aren't pretty enough or handsome enough to be out in front of people, and nobody's interested in what you have to say or the way that you're saying it, or like what you're saying is offensive to some people. So
Yeah, there's a whole, like, I think we could probably just park on this clip and talk about this one for a while. Because there's, like you said, everybody's got a talent in here. Everyone does. It may not be the one you want. I remember this, I don't even remember. It's not really a joke, but this general he died, went up to heaven. And he's a military historian, so he knew all the stuff. And he's like, oh man, I want to meet the greatest general ever. And so the angel pointed at this dude. He's like, I know that guy. He was the janitor. So yeah, but he would have been if he had gotten the opportunity, if he had taken a chance, he would have been the best general ever. But he didn't get the opportunity or he didn't take the opportunity. And I think you hit it spot on when you said, if the most important thing about us is our voice, what the enemy will do is everything to take out that voice. Right?
Yeah.
Jack said he had a thing with his ear. He's losing his hearing as the movie goes along.
Yeah.
And as somebody who recently got hearing aids, that's a very difficult thing to sort of take on. And I can't even imagine if that's your passion and you're losing not just the ability to do your passion, but to experience it. Like he can't even hear the music that he loves. That's being stolen. And we'll talk later about Rez and how he's a great example of the enemy trying to keep us from achieving, from reaching where we need to go. But again, we all have something to say. We all have an expression of the kingdom. And I can't remember if it was, I'm quoting a lot of people that I don't remember where it came from. It feels like a Henry Nouwen quote. But the basic gist is, if God knows me in a way that no one else does, then the converse is true, that I know God in a way that's specifically unique. And our job is to share that with the world.
Yeah, that's great. I like that.
I've talked a lot about this idea of, the blind man and the elephant, where one guy's like, he feels the trunk and he says it's like a snake, or feels the ear and it feels like a giant leaf, or the leg and it's like a trunk of a tree, or the tail, the tusk, everybody, each one of those people has an experience of the elephant that is true, but it's incomplete. And it's only when we get together that we can complete the vision. An MRI is much better than an X-ray because it's three-dimensional. You can see all of it. Jack even says it, that you've got to do something. Like, you've got a talent, but you've just got to do something with it. You've got to be not afraid to share your voice. And so, Sarah, as I like to turn it back and ask some questions, you're like, oh, this was unexpected. So when is this sort of thing come up for you, where you've been faced with this sort of moment where you're like, I've had these chances, but I keep getting shot down, and you start believing that the best thing that you can do is sing every week at a drag bar.
Which was so tragic, man. I was just, I will answer your question, but also I hate that the only place she felt like she could feel comfortable singing was in a drag bar. People had been so cruel to her, because Lady Gaga is not unattractive. And I actually loved how natural the look she had going on there, and people had been so cruel to her character that they had brought her self-esteem so low that she thought the only place that she could be presentable and attractive was in a drag bar, where she had to dress like a drag queen. That broke my heart. I was really, really sad about that. That's just tragic. yeah, let's see. In my own experience, I guess when I first, or actually even before I first started writing, there was a lot of, I don't want to say disinterest, but I just felt like it wasn't taken seriously. So I didn't take it seriously.
Mm.
We've talked before about how I never told my mom that I wanted to be an author, that was something like I wanted to do seriously with my life, because when I was growing up and I would make mention of things like that, the response that I would get would be like, oh, well, that's nice, just, as long as you have a real job, and I guess, and I was also at a different place with my writing then too. Like, it was before I had discovered Realm Makers, and I didn't have like the circle of, like friends and support that I have now. And so I didn't know if the stuff that I was writing was good, because I didn't have people would read it and they'd be like, oh, cool. But I didn't I didn't know if they would make them feel anything. I didn't know if it really spoke to them, or if it was just something that was just sort of entertaining, for them, because truthfully, I wasn't writing much that was serious back then too. I actually used to write screenplays before I wrote novels, because I used to hate writing description. I loved writing dialogue, and screenplays are just almost all dialogue. So that was just easy for me. So I would just write, like stories in screenplay form, basically. And I was always concentrating. I would take a lot. I wrote a lot of from life, like, because I would write about me and my friends, in story situations, basically. Like, I'd change the names and stuff like that, but you could read the screenplay and you'd be like, oh yeah, that's so and so, that's so and so, and I would write to entertain. Basically, I would lift like scenes verbatim from stuff that had happened with me and my friends, and put it in there like word for word, and they'd be like, oh wow, you put that thing into your story, that's funny. And so I wasn't trying to share anything like super heavy, because I don't think I trusted myself to do justice to the honesty of my heart, if that makes sense. And I was afraid about getting that vulnerable with people. I didn't want people to see the scary parts of me, and stuff. So it wasn't until I joined, Realm Makers, and started meeting all these other people who were scared of the same thing, but they were doing it, until I started, writing more deeply, and from the heart, and from what God was whispering me to share. Because that's when you get people. That's when you're speaking to people. That's when people listen, is when you're vulnerable and honest like that.
Yeah.
More than anything.
As you were talking, one of the things I took away is you've got to have a circle of like-hearted kings or queens.
Oh, yeah. Yes.
People who
100%.
see the world, they're pursuing the same thing, and can encourage you along that way.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes to be honest, you're like, yeah, I don't think this is it for you, but to be able to redirect you to the place it is.
Mm.
And yes. My boys and I are going through a devotional together. And when I say my boys and I'm going through it, and I text them every day, and I don't know if they're reading it or not.
Feel like you're missing out. Just saying.
But one of our devotionals, it was sort of the idea of memento mori, live with your death in front of you.
Mm-hmm.
Like, remember that you're going to die one day, and live accordingly. And again, as you were talking, it reminded me of that conversation. And I looked up, there's a lot of things about the 5 regrets of people who are dying from like hospice nurses and stuff. And number 1 was, I wish I'd had the courage to live a life true to myself, not the life others expected of me. And I have 2 bachelors, one in biology, one in nursing. I have a master's of nursing. I spent over 20 years being a nurse. And to step away, and people are like, well, what are you doing these days? Like, I'm watching my grandson is predominantly it. Taking care of my wife, taking care of my daughter, the dogs. I sort of take care of the house. I struggle with that one. I do the podcast. I dabble. You know, Alan recently asked me how the book was coming, and like, is it actually moving if I haven't written anything in over a year? But again, live the life to live true to myself. You know, I've been to Uganda to film stuff. I do the podcast. I've actually done a couple film projects for different people. And one of my friends who sort of helped start me on this journey last year when I was going to Uganda, and I've rented all this equipment, like high-end equipment. I'm going over there with $10,000 worth of gear that I had no idea how to use. And he texted me, he's like, man, we are so proud of you. I'm so proud of what you're doing and stepping into this, you know, stepping away from nursing to a calling that feels more true to who I am. Like, I couldn't keep doing that. And that's one of the other of the 5 things was I wish I had the courage to express my feelings. My kids probably wish I didn't express it quite so much. But you've got to, you know, those courage to live a life true to yourself and to express yourself. And that's what Jack is talking about here. Everyone has talent. Everyone has something to say. But the question is, nobody will say it because it feels fearful. It feels like too much. Right? And then you go to the scene, you know, she punches the cop and they go and sit in the parking lot and have that weird conversation. And then, you know, because she sort of comes up with the song right there on the spot. And she's singing, you know, In the Shallow. And he's just sitting there amazed because he's a man who's lost heart. He's drunk for every show. He's in the bottle. He's passed out. You know, that's sort of his way of coping. And he sees her as a rescue, right? He's supposed to be 43. She's 31. She's undiscovered, and he sees talent there. He sees something there that calls to the deepest parts of who he is. So this is the calling, right? We all have a calling. We all have a talent. We all have a mission. You may get 1 bag. You may get 5 bags, with the parable Jesus said. What we can't do is sit on it. But that's what Allie's been doing by showing up, going to the drag bar every week to do what she loves to do in a place that feels super safe because she was a server there. She's accepted. She's one of the girl guys. I'm not sure what the correct pronoun for that is, but so he wants her to come. Jack wants her to come to the next show. She's like, I can't. I've got to work. Right? Because I'm not sure what she does in the kitchen, but it's not that high up because she has to take out the trash when we first see her at work. Her buddy Ramon, who's the guy who plays Philip Hamilton and Lawrence in the original Hamilton. Again, don't know his name. My bad, dude. But he's saying, oh my gosh, like she's telling him about what her day was, how she had this weird date with Jackson, Maine, but he wanted to take her to the show, and he's like, no. And it's when she got to work, and the boss is like, you're late, is when she snapped. She's like, you know what? I don't need this. She has spent so much time hiding, and what was about to happen, she was not intending to happen. She just thought probably that she was being invited to be the next night fling, right?
Yeah, probably.
But she goes and she finds herself backstage, side stage, watching Jackson, Maine at a concert with one of her best friends. And it's an awesome time. And then the best moment in the entire movie, probably about the time I texted you, I love this movie, when I was about a millimeter away from actually just full on sobbing as emotion was pouring out. And so this one, as Jack transitions from one song to the next, he turns and sees that Allie's there. He gives her the invitation. And as we watch this clip, because I actually have it pulled up for Sarah to get to watch, so I can try to make her cry. But I want you to see how she reacts. And if you're listening, I would really encourage you to check it out on YouTube, because this is all the visual. And I think Lady Gaga does such an amazing job of reflecting all the terror and fear that we feel when we get invited, when God invites us to something. But then in this one scene, how this is God, our proud Father, inviting us into something he knows we were created to do. He knows we were designed to do, because he's the one who gave it to us. So I'm inviting you to watch this with those eyes.
There's a friend of mine who came a long way to be here, and she wrote a great song, and I just like her to sing it. I think it's pretty fucking good.
How are you? You made it. It's good to see you. Everything all right? The trip is fine?
Yeah.
Phil's all right? Didn't bother you at all?
So
Okay.
nice.
So listen, we're going to sing that song, all right? I did an arrangement. It was kind of not so great, but maybe you can just stick with it. Yeah, you go. Here we go.
Jess, please. It's not funny. Jess, don't fuck around.
All you gotta do is trust me. That's all you gotta do. I'm gonna sing it either way, so.
Tell me something, girl. Are you happy in this modern world? Or do you need more? Is there something else you're searching for? I'm falling. In all the good times I find myself longing for change, and in the bad times I fear myself.
Tell me something, boy. Aren't you tired trying to fill that void? Or do you need more? Ain't it hard keeping it so hardcore? I'm falling. In all the good times I find myself longing for change, and in the bad times I fear myself.
before she even goes out there, you know, and he comes over and he's trying to get her out. I love her friend behind her, Ramon, because he's sitting there and he's like, come on, and he's trying to like encourage her. It almost reminds me of like the Holy Spirit, you know. It's like God's like inviting us, beckoning us, and the Holy Spirit is behind us, going, "Go on, go do it, go." Yeah. And stuff, but yeah, there's just there's so much about that clip. I mean, for starters, like if I'm remembering correctly, all she had for that song was just like some lyrics that she had scribbled down in her notebook and stuff. So she hadn't even really come up with it for it
in the parking lot.
Yeah. So when he starts playing it, that's like the first time that she's heard music put to her words and stuff. And so it's so great because Lady Gaga really is amazing in this scene. You can see everything like on her face. Like you can see like, oh my God, he's playing my song. He's playing my song. You know, like that's my song. You know, and then you know, like he's trying to get her to come out, and it's so funny because he's just kind of like teasing her, like, "Come on, we're gonna do this. It's gonna be fun. Come on," you know. And she's terrified, and so she's just like, "No, you're crazy. You're a crazy man. Let go of me. No, not doing that." And then when he leans over and he's like, "You just gotta trust me. Like, what are you afraid of? I'm here. It's me. You know, like we did this together in the parking lot before. It's just like that, you know, except." You know, we're just in a different place. Just come out. Just come and sing to me. Don't sing to them. Sing to me. You know, and then she does come out. And what's great about the scene is that you don't see a lot of the audience in the scene because it's so focused on the two of them. And when I was like watching this, I got like a simultaneous kind of picture in my head from God, because when we create with God the way that we're supposed to, it's like, you know, the Holy Spirit gives us inspiration, and he's kind of like, you know, like feeding it into us, and we're like, oh wow, what is that? You know, that's really cool. I like that, you know, and so it's kind of like he's singing to us, and then like Allie did, you know, when we respond and we start singing back to him, he's so delighted that we're responding to him. And he just sits there and enjoys what we're putting out. And then he sings back to us because he's delighted, you know, like that we're responding to him. And then we enjoy so much what he's singing. And it's just this wonderful back and forth. And I just got this picture in my head, like in the movie, everything else disappears. And it's just the two of them. And you're just creating, and the joy is flowing out of creating, and the joy is flowing out of the other person's joy, and like at what they're bringing forth and what you're bringing forth, and you're just feeding each other, and that makes you want to create more. And it's just I'm not even using the right words to even properly describe it, but I can't even come close. But it's just it's so great. But yeah, you see all of that, and you see how terrified she is to get out there in front of people, and how shy she is at first, kind of just like, and do you need more? You know? And but then like all at once, you know, like it's like she all of a sudden loses that inhibition because she's there with Jack. And suddenly that's all she cares about, is that she's singing with Jack. And that's what she's like, I'm a fighting man, what does I do? You know, and the great thing about that song is that she's singing about like her life, you know, because before she was always kind of just like tiptoeing in the shallows and not really, you know, going deeper. She was just kind of getting her feet wet a little bit with singing, but nothing major and stuff. And Jackson's the one like, no, let's go over here to the deep end, you know, let's throw ourselves into this. And, you know, and that's what the whole song is about, you know, like, let's go deep, throw ourselves off, you know, see what happens. It's funny, when I watch that clip, I am so strongly reminded of a moment like that I had in my life, which I've talked about on the podcast before, when I was at the Rhubarb Academy, and I had the short story that God encouraging me to share, which I did not want to.
Right.
Because I had written that short story. Okay, I'm sorry, I'll keep it really quick, but just for the background of people who are listening, Jim Rubart, one of my favorite authors, he wrote a book called Soul's Gate that I liked so much, I decided to write myself into some scenes from it. And I didn't do that as like a fangirly thing. I did it because the book meant so much to me and spoke so much to me. You know, God really spoke to me through the book, and I just started imagining myself into some of the scenes, like the characters were talking to me, asking me deep heart questions, you know, about myself. So I wrote a short story, you know, based on that. And when I was at the Rubart Academy, Jim, who was teaching, had us write short stories, and I had gone to my hotel room to finish the short story that I was going to turn into when God started poking me and said, no, I don't want you to turn that one in. I want you to do this one. And for, I think, about 2 hours, I argued with God about how that was not going to happen because that story was not for anybody to see, especially not Jim. And there was just no way it was happening. And God just kept going, you just got to trust me. You just got to trust me. You just got to trust me. You know, and so finally I gave in, because the only reason I gave in was because I remember thinking, well, the enemy must really not want me to turn this story in, because I would not be getting so upset if that wasn't so. So I polished up my little short story and I kind of shut my eyes and clicked send. And I couldn't even look at Jim the next day. I was so terrified. I didn't want to talk to him. I didn't want to hear what he thought. I just wanted to like forget that I had ever sent it in. And, you know, he ended up calling me out in front of everybody. You know, Sarah has done a very interesting thing with her short story. And he ended up inviting me to stand up in front of everybody and read it with him, which I absolutely refused to do. Again, it was like, he's like, what? He's like, there's just people here. Just come on, just do it. It's great. I love it. I'm honored. I love what you did. It's great. It's fantastic. And I just was sitting there absolutely feeling sick to my stomach. Like, I have friends who were there who could tell you, like, oh yeah, she was like gray. We've never seen her look like that before. She literally looked like she was going to puke. And again, the only reason I went up to actually do it with him was because I knew if I didn't, I would regret it later. I'm like, I will never have this opportunity again. And what am I afraid of? Jim likes it. I know God likes it, because it doesn't even matter if Jim didn't like it. God liked it. He loved what I did. He loved that I did this creative out of the box thing, you know, and stuff. So what does it matter what the other people think? You know, I need to get up there and I need to read this to the glory of God who inspired me with it in the first place. And I said, and if I don't, I'll regret it, and I will regret it badly, you know. So I did it, and I'm glad I did it. But that's all I think about every time I see that scene with Allie. I'm like, oh, I know what that feels like. Yep. For sure.
Yeah, you hit just about all the notes I had taken. Like throughout it, like different beats were happening. I loved the little wink after he invited her and she's resisting. He's like, I'm gonna do it either way.
Yeah.
Like, God's gonna move. You can either be a part of it or you can say, no thanks, I'm gonna stuff my talents over here, and because that's scary.
Yeah.
But you also said that idea, like she looked like she was going to puke as she's going out there. And who hasn't felt that way, stepping out into something? I loved how she covered her eyes.
Yeah, she's
and then
literally
later
like,
covered
what
her
am
mouth.
I doing here?
That was awesome. And then what I've discovered God tends to do is he'll invite you into something. Hey, come up. We're going to sing this song together. And then halfway through it, about the time you're like, okay, this isn't as bad as I thought. He's like, all right, go to the main mic. She's like, what the hell?
Let's take it up a notch.
But there was a look that he gave, you know, as Allie started singing, he sort of gave one of his, I think probably the bassist a little
Yeah.
wink and a nod. He's like,
Yeah.
I told you.
Yeah.
And there is, I think when we start stepping into what God has designed us and called us to be, he does. He's like, with a wink and the nod. See, I told you. They're going to nail it. Just wait. She's about to knock it out of the park right here.
Yep.
And then the joy as they're singing together at the end.
Yes.
And
Love it.
you had talked about that sort of the singing together and the dance. And again, once again, I'm throwing out this idea that I have no idea where it came from. But all of creation came from the dance of the Trinity. Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Out of their love, their union, they created the world and then us in their image with a specific purpose, with a destiny, with a calling. If we're brave enough, if we have the courage to step up when we get invited, if we take into it. It's interesting. Earlier this year, I had a buddy of mine. He's like, "Hey, we're going to do this event." I was like, "Yeah, as far as I know," less than a confident answer, right? It's like, "Hey, are we going to do this, the sort of this prayer team that we had done at the last event?" I'm like, "I'm not sure." And that triggered a phone call. He's like, "What are you talking about?" I'm like, "Look, dude, I have these 3 events. I've got this one in Colorado. I've got this one here, and I've got going to Uganda. And I feel like there's this gray fog bank over each one of them. I have no idea if God's calling me into it, if he's inviting me into it. I don't know. I'm just, I pray about it. God, is this where you want me to go this year?" And this is the same guy. He's also going to that event in Colorado. And it's like, I really wanted to be there with him because I know, like, I know what it's like. And I was like, oh, his is going to freaking change his life. And I want to be there with him to see the change happen. And I don't really know exactly what happened. But after that phone call, I went to church and it wasn't on my mind. I wasn't thinking about it. And we're worshiping and we're praying and I'm listening to the sermon. And it felt like God was like, well, if you want to do that, go ahead. Allie had been singing for years. She knew how to do it. She knew how to work the crowd, right? You see that in her performance at the drag bar. She knows how to do it. She just needed permission. She wanted to do it. That's what she dreamed about doing. She just needed permission. For this is like, oh, I want to do that. I want to be there with my buddy to go through that. I want to go to this men's event and like take it up a notch and really have this strength and presence there. It's like, I think I just want to go to Uganda because my brother and my wife love doing it and I want to do that with them. And I feel like, and there's no bragging in this at all, but I've matured to the point where God's like, oh, if you want to do that, go ahead. I'm going to do it anyway. You can come. But you might be listening or watching. You might be saying, okay, that's great. You guys are writers, filmmakers, singers. We're watching a movie about singers. I'm just not that creative.
Lies.
That's lies of the enemy. Because going back to the dance of the Trinity, if we were created in the image of God, the very first thing we see God do is create. Mm-hmm. You are designed in the image of the Creator. Now, I'm not saying you have to like write a poem or, in the America's Next Great Novel or go on a singing tour. What is creativity other than bringing something into existence that didn't previously exist? My dad was an accountant. He's really good at spreadsheets. And to him, it was super easy. Like, again, he had gone to Uganda with us for several years, and he's like, I don't feel like I do anything. Like, that's because it's so easy for you. It's not even difficult to like manage the finances and the books and all this stuff. For my brother, not an accountant, like it was taking like 40% of his mental capacity to keep track of this stuff. And now he gets to go do what he's really good at. My dad's doing what he's really good at. You know, it could be spreadsheets. It could be kids. Because guess what? Your kid's future is not set. To go back to the Terminator, Sarah.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
We're really having callbacks. We did Blues Brothers, now we're doing Terminator. But you have been given a talent. I don't know what it is, but it's definitely to create something in your voice, in your perspective, God's expression in the world through you. And part of it is, one, you got to figure out what it is. And it's probably something that you think is kind of easy, because it is, because it's a gift.
Yeah.
But it's something that, like, my wife even, she left me a voicemail today, which I may not delete, because she said I did a really good job with my grandson today. I was very calm and patient and engaging with him, which I'm not always. But I'm not going to lie. I feel like I'm a pretty good grandfather. You know, it reminds me of the line from Say Anything, John Cusack, where he's like, I'm really good at taking care of your daughter. I really like, you know, I'm really good at that. It's like, I don't know about this job thing, but I love her and I do that well. There's something that we do well that Father has put into us, that God has infused into our DNA. And God, is waiting for the opportunity to invite us into it. But it's going to take guts. It's going to take boldness and courage to step into something, to step out of the shallows where we feel like we have control.
Mm-hmm.
It's easy to stay in the shore, in the shallows. Nothing bad ever happens unless you're in a hurricane. But if you're just at the beach, nothing bad happens except for sunburn on the beach. You can even go in the water. Nothing really is going to happen. I'm just standing there getting my toes wet. But you go out deep enough where you can't feel the bottom anymore, where your trust is completely in God. And that's what you got to trust me. She's like, Jackson's been doing this a while. He says I can do it. I'm going to believe him more than I believe me, because I know me. My brain, my voice is screaming in my brain, you're an idiot. You can't do this. What are you thinking? You're wasting your money. You're wasting your time. And all that was happening in my head last year before I went to Uganda, because I'm spending all this money of a dude who lives in Charlotte. Who do you think you are? You ever think you'll ever be a part of a movie project? It's like, you know what? The best way to guarantee it is to sit on my ass and do nothing. But if I engage and I'm like, okay, you know, a couple buddies of mine have work or have these companies, and they're talking to me about their ideas. I'm like, you know, I have a camera. We can film it. We can make these commercials. See what happens. Is it comfortable? No. But I'm expressing myself. I'm putting myself out there and saying, God, you better catch me. I'm jumping, depending on God to catch me. And that doesn't always mean we're going to get a Grammy. That's not how everything works. Because we've got a calling, we've got an invitation, but we also have an enemy. And Rez, Allie's agent, as you know, we're skipping ahead now towards the end of the movie. Rez is Allie's agent because she starts going on tour. She's singing more. They're writing more songs. It's obvious she has talent and is a blossoming. She's a star in the making, right? That's the title of the movie, right?
Yep.
And so he sees an opportunity to make some money, to create the next big star. And I thought it was interesting. Jackson, he's a country singer. He's got the greasy hair. It always looks like he's been working on the ranch all day. And he plays the guitar. But when Allie's going to do it, she's got to have dancers, makeovers, all this other stuff that has to happen. And there's this great scene we're not going to play that Sarah, we loved when they're on the balcony, and he's like, you focus on what you have to say. You dig your roots down deep into the creativity, the thing that you have to say, because everybody will say it, but the way you say it is the voice of the angels.
Yeah, that's so good.
And here's where I'm going to make my argument that if things continue, and Jackson, as happens in these movies, but also happens in life, he gives in the drinking, the drugs, the addictions. Allie wins a Grammy and he pees himself on stage, ends up in rehab, but he becomes toxic in the eyes of the sponsors. She cancels an American tour because she says, I want him a part of it. And they all say, he can't be. She's like, well, I just won't do it then. Again, the story of the purity and the depth of their love for each other. Enter Rez. He stops by under the guise of, I'm just here to talk to Allie. She's going to meet me back here. So they're kind of chit-chatting. And Jackson, he's been through rehab. He wants to get things right. He wants to do right by Allie. He's got his own demons from the past that he's got to deal with. I mean, he's got his void he's been trying to fill. It's in the song. And Rez sits down and reveals his cards.
We're not exactly friends here. While you've been away, we've been back here in serious triage trying to clean up your fucking mess. Barely finding our way through it. You almost single-handedly derailed her whole career. You understand that? She's never going to say this to you. She loves you too much. Just by staying married to you, she looks like a joke. It's embarrassing. Let's be honest. We both know it's only a matter of time before that's pushed aside again for the real thing. And when that happens, I don't want her anywhere near you.
I thought it was interesting. He's like, you derailed her career, the career that he started. Like, Jackson was the one who gave her the chance, who gave her the opportunity. She looks like a jerk for staying married to you. If you remove yourself from the situation, you're like, that's stupid. Like, that's not how people work. Typically when people admit they have a mistake, they apologize, they try to get better. You tend to give them a chance. The only person who thought Allie was a jerk for staying with him was Rez. Mm-hmm. Because she was costing him money. She was costing him the opportunity to say, look what I created. Because you know what? That's what Satan does. He takes what God creates and distorts it.
Yeah.
Because Satan can't create. He decreates, or he not really creates, but he creates chaos by disrupting the intention. What do you think Allie would have rather had? Jackson alive or a music career?
Jackson alive. Because
100%.
I honestly don't think Allie I don't even ever think it was her like goal or dream to be like a big famous, like music star. I don't think that was something that when she started singing with Jackson, she's like, yes, this is how I'm going to get started. It's nothing but up from here, baby. I'm going to take over the world. I don't think that was in her thoughts at all. I think she just enjoyed singing and making music with Jackson. I think that was all that was in her mind. And then she got some opportunities thrown her way. She got people telling her that she looked good, which she hadn't heard before, and that she could go far and she could be famous. And I mean, that's exciting, especially when you've had people tell her that, like that, oh, you're unattractive, you're going nowhere, and stuff. This was almost like her chance to like spit in those people's faces, like, well,
Right.
I'll show you, but I don't think that she ever had any real and you see that too, because she's kind of in the beginning, she's pushing against Rez, like, well, why do I have to change my hair?
Right.
Well, I didn't want the backup dancers, like, can't we just do it without them? And he kind of pushes back and he's like, look, if you want to be famous, this is what's going to happen,
Right.
and stuff. And that's exciting when you're getting in front of people and they want to give you big awards and give you lots of money and, telling that you're the whole time, you're so talented, you're so talented, you're so talented, and that feels good, like that, I'm sure that tastes great. But I don't think that it was ever what she really wanted. I think she would have been super happy to not make a dime and just, sit on the front porch, like with Jackson and strum a guitar and make songs, and she would have been happy as anything to just do that, So I hate Rez. I hate him.
Yeah.
Oh, I hate that scene.
Right. And Jack listened, and it took him out. And I've as I've gotten older and more mature, the stories of men and women who get taken out grieve me. Like, I remember seeing the intro to Lone Survivor, and it's from the Buds, the Navy SEALs training, and seeing how hard it is, and then seeing the guys slowly tap out. I can't do it anymore. Because we all have people who tap out. I mean, maybe it's not suicide. Maybe it's just they walk away from their faith. They walk away from their family. They walk away from their kids. They walk away from their calling, their invitation, because they listen to the enemy. And why I'm going to say, this is why I think I love this movie. Because this echoes the book of Acts. If Stephen doesn't die, do we have Paul? Right? And you look at what Paul, what God tells Ananias when Paul's converted, is I'm going to show him how much he's going to suffer. When you look at Allie's music so far, it's, even that song she sang for the Saturday Night Live gig of like, God, look at my ass or something.
I hate that song.
It was terrible, right? And Jack did too. But
because she wasn't saying anything. That song wasn't saying anything.
Right. And for her to really reach the depth of who she is as a songwriter, as a person, as a woman, she had to go through that tragedy so that she could say what she was called to say. And we see it. She struggled. She's probably, how hard would it be to sing again? To get up on stage? To do this thing that she did with her beloved? And yet she did it anyway. I love the way they did it. She's seeing flashbacks. Mm-hmm. But she's doing it anyway. Paul gets beaten, he's stoned, he's flogged, he's threatened, he's bit by a spider, he's shipwrecked. Once you meet Jesus, you can't turn back.
Yeah.
This was
for sure.
This was a guy whose passion was stamping out the way because of his passion for the church, for the Jewish church at that time. He's like, no, this is how God's kingdom is going to come. And Jesus shows up and he's like, why are you doing this? And once you meet with Jesus, your life's never the same again.
That is true.
And it's not always going to be roses and love songs and gazing dreamily into each other's eyes. There's going to be hard days. There's going to be loss. There's going to be tragedy. What will you sing when those days come? The question is not what, but will you? Will you still sing? That's why I love this movie, because she still gets up and sings, and she sings about her love, and you know it's real because she's been through the pain. She's been through the shit, and she still shows up.
Yeah.
And that's why I love this movie.
That's good. I mean, I'll give you that. That's good. I'll give you that, where you were like, well, if Steven didn't die, then we wouldn't have a Paul. I'm like, okay, that's a very valid point. You're right. I wish a couple of things. I wish that we had been able to see Rez's reaction to her, like, I wish we could have seen where her career kind of went. Like, did she stay with Rez, or did she? I mean, we never really find out if she, like, knew or suspected what he said to Jackson, or what Rez's reaction was to Jackson's death. We never see anything like that. I mean, maybe she decided that she didn't want to be a star, and just maybe she decided to manage herself, because you never see him after that, so you don't know. I wish we could have seen maybe a little bit further down the road, like where her singing had ended up, and just I was curious, like, because she did that concert at the end, I believe, if I remember correctly, is supposed to be like a memorial concert for Jackson. And does she keep singing publicly after that, or does she make it more of a private thing? I don't know. I guess I was just really curious. But you're right. It must have been huge. I can't even imagine doing something that was like my special thing, like with the man that I love, and something that was so, like, incredibly intimate, for the two of them, and then having to get up and do it alone. First of all, I don't think I would want to, because it would be like our thing, and having to do it without the other person, it would almost defeat the purpose of doing it at all, and then just like having to do it alone, and I can't. I can't.
All right, I have a closing argument for this, Sarah.
Okay.
If she had continued doing her tour, doing the little pop music, sugar pop tour music, where she doesn't really have anything to say, she does not become a star.
Yeah, I get that. It should totally be a one-hit wonder.
Yeah, I mean, right? Where's Hanson these days? I'm not saying somebody needed to die from the group, but I don't think you can become a star without going through tragedy. And here is my final argument.
Okay.
Because if Jesus was just a prophet who died, he's nobody. If he was a king to take over the world, that's great. But he had to die in order to become the Messiah, in order to throw down the tyranny, to become the morning star, to become the lamb and the lion. He had to go through that suffering and death in order to accomplish the greatest mission of the world in overthrowing the dark tyranny of sin. He didn't come to throw Rome down. He didn't come to reestablish Israel. He came to set everything right. And in order to do that, in order to become the star, he had to die.
Yeah, but he came back, though.
That's right. And that's what our whole hope is built on, the fact that he came back. Because death is not final.
Yeah.
And as Paul, again, throwing it back to Paul, as he said, if the resurrection didn't happen, then what are we doing here? We're just wasting our time, and of all men, most to be pitied. If what we believe didn't happen, then we are fools throwing our lives away. But if it did, then again, by going back to Jesus, if we want to be stars in the kingdom, if we want to be the lowercase kings and queens of the kingdom of heaven, what does Jesus say? You have to die in order to live. In order to lock her full potential, Jack had to die.
What was that Jim Elliot said? To give up what you cannot keep, to gain what you cannot lose.
Yeah. I didn't say I liked it. We don't like Rez. I told her it's like watching the old the 2003 Panthers when they go to the Super Bowl. Like if I rewatch videos, I just keep hoping John Casey doesn't kick it out of bounds. I just keep wishing, no, just back out of the garage and go to the concert. Come on, Jack. No, don't stop the truck. Don't.
Yeah. I understand. I see what you're saying. I do. I understand this. The sacrifice was necessary for the story, and for the characters. But I hated seeing his hope crushed like that.
Yeah.
Anytime you see hope decimated like it was there, it's just so heartbreaking. And like he'd been doing so well because, you know, like he loved Allie. He wanted to be with Allie. And in the end, that became more important to him than his addiction, you know, like than, you know, being able to escape into booze, you know, to deal with his problems and stuff. Like he would rather allow himself to feel hurt and feel pain that he can't numb and be there with Allie, for Allie, you know, not even singing anymore, but just to support her in her career. And you know, he was digging himself out of that pit, you know, and I hate Rez so much
that's how the enemy works. We hit this point, we start to get a little momentum, we start to feel good, and then we lose the job. Then the wife kicks us out. Then a child dies. Then tragedy strikes. Every time you're going to move in the direction, every time you're going to experience freedom, healing, maturation, something's going to happen because the enemy's going to intimidate you and say, no, it's not real. Nope, it's not going to last. Oh, you think this is nice? All right, you're good. I'm going to go after your kids.
Yeah.
And again, that's my experience with not just me personally, but with the people I walk with. Oh, you're good. You're strong. I'm going after your wife. You think you're doing well. Somebody's going to come tell you something that makes you realize, that makes you question everything you thought you believed. What are you going to do in those moments? It's okay to grieve. It's okay to break stuff. It's okay to get through. But at the end of the day, you got to get up and sing again. Even when it doesn't make sense.
I just thought of another, you know, biblical parallel, the story of Joseph. You know, it's like there was like several times in his life where he was doing really well and he was using his talent, which was, you know, telling dreams, you know, and he was his father's favorite. He was getting some really nice clothes, and then he's sold to traders, you know, and then, you know, things start looking good for him. He's in a nice household. His boss really trusts him. He puts him in charge of everything. And then he turns down his wife's booty call and he gets thrown in prison because he gets accused of raping, you know, assaulting her, you know. And then he's in prison, which is like the lowest he's ever been. and he's there for years and stuff. And then, like, one guy says, hey, there's a guy in the prison who knows how to tell dreams. He's talking to the Pharaoh. Let's get him out here and see if he can help you out. And that's when when his star is born, and he makes the climb until he's just, second in command of Pharaoh himself over the entire country of Egypt, and then his brothers come, and he's able to help them. But I love that verse in the Bible, what you meant to hurt me, God used for good.
Yeah. So in my version of the ending, Allie cancels the tour. She fires Rez.
Yes.
She works with the brother, Sam Elliott, and they go on to be an actual force to be reckoned with.
Yeah. I like that. I'd see that ending. I'd see that ending for sure. Maybe she gets noodles out to do backup for her or something.
And just like going through Bud's SEALs training, the only way you fail is if you quit. The only way you fail is if you quit. That's, Jack quit. And so if you're listening to this and you've stuck around this long and you're still feeling like quitting, please reach out for help. There's always someone who wants to listen. There's always someone who cares. Reach out to that one person today. And if you can't think of anybody, just call 988. That's the suicide hotline. I'll put a link in the show notes. You only lose if you quit. If you give up. Don't give up. You still have a song to sing. You still have something to say. You still have something that the world needs. Doesn't matter what the enemy's been telling you. You still have a song to sing.
Something inside has been awakened. I can no longer be who I was before. But if I am no longer who I was, who am I to be?